Okay, so we are going to start our set of discussions about organism relationships, which is some of my favorite units. So the first unit we're going to talk about is predation and parasitism. And so you're going to see that all of these are sort of in pairs because they're pretty much the same thing with some very minor differences. Okay, so we are going to talk about them separately, so I'm going to define them sort of collectively first, and then we're going to go through some of the unique differences between each. Okay? This is the first of the relationships that you can use for your Red Queen. We'll talk about that project as we get further into it. Okay, so predation, and as we're going to find, also parasitism, also deals with basically organisms eating each other. Okay. And so a good half of the species do this in some form or another, right? Predator and herbivore are the same thing. Right, so a rabbit is a predator. And we just have this sort of view that being an herbivore is a very peaceful mindset. Okay? It's not that from the view of the plant. You're still being consumed. Okay. So the key here, and what makes a good definition of whether it's predation, is one species, okay, the predator, is getting benefit by directly harming and consuming tissue of another species, in this case the prey, right? Okay, so we classically tend to think like lion, the predator, it directly harms and benefits the antelope by consuming its tissue. Antelope in that case being the prey. It's dramatic, it's bloody, it's carnivorous. But this is the same as we imagine a ferocious, carnivorous caterpillar as it crawls around on the milkweed plant. Okay, it is getting benefit. It directly harms, destroys and consumes the tissue of its prey. In that case, the milkweed plant, right? It's just called herbivory because the plant then is a different level on our trophic scale, but it's still predation, right? Because it's still falling under this category, right? That plant is being broken down. Still the caterpillar's goal to kill and consume, if it could. Certainly the rabbit will eat the whole dandelion, the entire lettuce plant. Okay, the deer will eat the whole plant if it could. This is why you want to keep them out of your garden. Plants feel pain, still predation. So here are all of the different terms that can fall under this umbrella. Okay. The first two are the most straightforward. Okay, carnivory and herbivory. Okay, so really the only difference there is carnivory is the kind of the classic form of depredation, okay, because both the predator and prey are animals. They're organisms in the trophic chain that are animals. They are meat. Okay. Herbivory, then, where the predator is the animal and the prey is either a plant or algae. We tend to forget that algae is a thing. Okay, so here's where parasitism and parasitoidism, if you've not heard this term before, differ. Parasitism is the only thing that really sits outside of this boat a little. Okay. So the predator in this case, the parasite, is somewhat symbiotic. It's still causing harm. It's still getting a benefit. It's consuming nutrients from its host or tissue, depending. Okay, but oftentimes, usually the goal of the parasite is not to kill the host. Okay. Any actual death, right, or full-on failure of the host also causes death, right, to the parasite. So it's a delicate symbiotic balance there. Okay. Often that is the case, particularly with some kind of chronic infection, but it's ironically inadvertent, right? Okay. Parasitoids, if you're not familiar, are super weird. Okay. And probably the nastiest of the entire bunch, if you want my personal opinion. Okay. Parasitoids are almost exclusively insects. Okay, so in this case, instead of consuming tissue themselves, what they do are lay eggs inside their host, oftentimes, but not exclusively, other insects. The host gets to live its best life for a short period of time, and then those eggs hatch inside the body of their host. At that point, the eggs then consume their host's body. So that's the moment of predation. Okay. They've gotten protection for that short period of time, and then they are using that as food. Okay. This always kills the prey. You don't usually live through that. Nor, I would imagine, would you want to. So ironically, the parasite is the least cruel of the bunch. Most likely did not die as you fall victim to that, as you are the other three. Okay, any questions about these four definitions and how they fall under the umbrella of predation? Okay, let's stop there today then.